Along the ancient Mediterranean, the sheer volume and scale of trade required people to innovate. Many would conduct trades in different units of gold or silver, often in rods or small nuggets. Yet a breakthrough would occur in the 7th century BC, where the Lydian kingdom would begin standardizing coins, creating a uniform weight and ratio of a gold and silver alloy, with the Lydian kings stamping an image into each coin, a mark denoting the guarantee of purity. Trade would flourish across the Mediterranean, yet for you, in your village in Northern Europe, this really doesn't mean all that much to you. You're still bartering as you always have. That is until you begin to come in contact with some of these coins. It's around the 3rd century BC. Tribes in Gaul and Britain are coming across Greek and Roman coins. Now these coins aren't particularly relevant to most of you. Day to day, you're still going to be trading with goods. Yet, for some of your tribal leaders, they begin to realize that they could make their own and use those for large international transactions. And so, you begin to use them as status symbols, for tributes in war, and as ritual offerings, continuing to barter in the marketplace. However, in the 1st century BC, Julius Caesar invades Gaul, and subsequently, Rome invades into Britain. Along with them, they bring silver and gold coins. Now the Roman coins are standardized and a part of your economy. Yet nothing can last forever, and Rome begins to crack. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, Germanic kingdoms would attempt to maintain Roman prestige. The Merovingian Franks would begin minting small gold coins. However, as trade slows and access to gold from the Mediterranean and Byzantium dry up, these coins begin to become more scarce and increasingly crude. Yet now, let's move forward. You are entering into the 7th century. Trade along the North Sea begins to be revived. You realize that for such high trade volume, gold is quite inconvenient, and so you decide to pivot to small, thicker silver coins. You have now begun to create a high-velocity, market-driven monetary economy, an economy particularly active across the English Channel and the Rhine. So now everything seems to be going quite smooth. So let's say that you are an 8th century craftsman. You would like to go out and make money, but unfortunately, the estate that you live on needs upkeep. And so unfortunately, you must dedicate much of your time to maintaining the lands of the feudal lord. And of course as well, this land needs defending, so you must commit some of your time to fighting in the lord's army. This seems like a good deal. You have a nice place to live. Your area is safe, well defended. Overall, you're pretty happy, but you're a bit limited, for there's a lot that you must do for the estate. And so a new idea emerges. What if instead of working on the estate and fighting in the army, you just paid money to the lord? That way the lord could get ultimately the same resources, and he could pay mercenaries if needed, allowing you to go off and sell your craft. This new arrangement seems to work for everyone, and so now you go off and enter into this booming trade. The money begins pouring in, and large quantities of gold and silver coin make their way to you. However, one day, as you are going to conduct a large trade, the merchant you're dealing with looks at you skeptically. You ask, what is the problem? He holds up one of the coins and says, "Take a look at this. Does this look right to you?" You take a closer look. Indeed, something is off. The shape isn't right. It seems a little bit too small. So he looks at you and asks if you're trying to rip him off. Of course not, you say, and you begin to get quite angry, for somewhere along the way, you were ripped off. Upon closer inspection, you realize that these coins have been clipped, for there's a real problem in your money system. What's to stop someone from simply cutting off a little bit of each coin? It looks like nothing at a quick glance. Yet if melted down, these little bits of gold and silver can add up to quite a lot of value. Some even begin to get a bit cleverer. They begin sweating the coins. A clip is far too easy to see on any close look, so instead, they would begin placing them into rough leather bags and shaking them vigorously. That way, little bits of the gold and silver dust would remain within the bag, yet to the naked eye, they would simply look as though they had been worn and weathered. No one could suspect you of clipping. They're just old. And so now your kingdom has a real problem. Well, the king learns of this and decides that something must be done. He decides that there will be a strict death penalty for coin clipping. There we go. Problem solved. Now you can get back to your trade. Yet, over time, as this trade becomes increasingly sophisticated with more and more transactions across kingdoms, all of the different coins, all of the different alloys, the different weights, the different levels of enforcement for clipping and sweating, it becomes really difficult to keep track of all of these different coins. A coin from Anhalt looks different than a coin that comes from Luxembourg, and a coin from Luxembourg looks quite differently than a Frisian coin. And why does the Utrecht coin look so different from the one from Holland? This is a real mess. Yet fortunately for you, now you're a descendant of the guy from earlier, in the 8th century, a new great emperor emerges, Charlemagne. As Charlemagne builds a vast empire across Western Europe, he recognizes the coin problem, and he decides to make it all uniform. And so, now across the entirety of the Holy Roman Empire, there is to be a standard coinage system. 1 libra to 20 soladi, and 20 soladi to 240 denarii. So now, as the Middle Ages are going along, trade begins to pick up once again. And as trade volume has gotten so large, you've run into a new problem. The king simply can't mint enough to keep up with the economic growth. It's as though you need some type of money to use for these large transactions, and something to keep up with the large finances of the sovereign. But you also need something else for all the small transactions that are happening at such a rapid pace in the markets. And so one of the king's ministers has a flash of inspiration. What if the unit of exchange and the unit of account were different? And so now the ghost currency is born. Currency is not functionally used in regular trade, but maintained and considered real and valuable for the purpose of account. Regular transactions in some sort of cheap, light, and low-value coin, and something that can be used for the taxes. You have now witnessed the birth of a multi-track monetary system, and now your kingdom is free to expand rapidly without worrying about the constraints of the gold and silver supplies. And so the economy goes forward and booms. It is now generations later. It is the 10th century. You are a part of a quite successful merchant family. You hear of great opportunity for trade in the Islamic Caliphate. And now you have a problem. For this opportunity is fantastic. You know that you will get extremely rich, but you will need to transact on a scale that you have no means of doing. And more than that, you will need more money than you have. So what do? How do you get money? Well, you know that after the transaction is complete, you will have sufficient funds. But the problem is, you need more money to begin with to even enter into the transaction. Fortunately for you, you come across a new friend. One day, while resting in Florence, you meet a wealthy Italian merchant. You tell him of your idea. You joke, saying that you would take out a loan if you could. But of course, such things are impossible. The church expressly forbids it. For you live in a time where lending with interest is illegal. But your Italian friend seems unfazed. He even smirks at you, chuckles a little. He explains that he and his friends, the other Italian merchants, have found a solution that makes that no longer a concern. He will simply advance to you the money you need. He suggests that this be done in Florentine money. From there, the goods will travel, ultimately reaching their end destination, far across the Mediterranean. And once there, you will simply need to pay him back later in a different currency. No interest, you ask? Not at all, he says. Well, this seems too good to be true. You ask what the catch is. He smirks and leans forward, lowering his voice. Well, the 100 coins that you need in Italian coinage exchange for about 200 in Arab coinage, a ratio of 1 to 2. And so I will advance to you 100 Italian coins. After the transaction is done, you just need to pay me back 220 Arab coins. You think about this for a moment. Hold on. Isn't that 10% interest? He looks at you feigning shock. Bah! No. No, this is a simple currency exchange. This is a bill of exchange, and we do it all the time. You look around shocked. After all, this is almost certainly charging interest. You ask him how the church can possibly be okay with this. He smirks, saying, "Well, actually, some of my best clients are the bishops." It's then that you realize what is going on here. Charging interest is fine, as long as you do it sneaky. You agree, and you expand your merchant empire vastly. You get rich as a trader, and the Italian banker gets rich off of foreign currency arbitrage. And so you retire a very wealthy man, handing off the enterprise to your son. He is a quite wealthy merchant in London. Let's imagine now that this is you. You've inherited your father's empire, you're getting loans subtly, and you're getting very rich. Unfortunately, one day, you hear that one of your shipments has been raided. Damn Norsemen, you say. For a new problem has arisen. The Scandinavians. The Scandinavians, a long time ago, realized that they could get quite wealthy by raiding other kingdoms. As Europe was becoming Christian, yet they retained their Old Norse pagan ways, they found an opening in the market. Why not just steal from the monasteries? And so the lords of the land got together to try to figure out what to do. The solution was quite simple. Just pay them to go away. And so now, you live in a system called the Danegeld. Regularly, your kingdom has to pay the Vikings just to leave you alone. The Vikings have gathered millions of these Carolingian coins from Charlemagne. Yet instead of spending it, they chop it up into fragments. They mix them alongside Islamic coins, weighing the metal on handheld scales for transactions. And so, as these masses of loose metal make their way across the world, a secondary bullion economy begins to emerge. You are shocked to hear that your shipment was raided, and so you go to the local lord to ask him what is going on. With despair, he looks at you. He says that the king's attention has been divided, that though the king is continuing to pay the Scandinavians to go away, there have been gaps in the defenses, as wars have become more common and larger in scale, that lately some bands of raiders have just been getting through. You ask what is being done in order to deal with this, and he explains that the normal tax system just isn't enough, that the taxes that the king can get are limited by the gold supply, which in turn means it's limited by the scale of trade. He explains that the king is working on a solution. He explains that the king is considering putting some tariffs on trade. You ask, what does he mean? And he says that the king will take a small fraction of the money that flows through. There we go. Problem solved. And this seems to work for some time. Generations pass, and things are going reasonably well. The Viking problem begins to go away, and the economy picks up. The king, now able to collect indirect taxes from trade, is able to fund armies. It is now generations later, your family have been made earls, and it seems your business savvy has paid off. That is until one day, the king sends a message to you. He explains that he needs everyone to bring their coins, and that all of the coins in the realm are to be replaced. You rush to the king, asking what is going on. He explains that the war in France has become just too expensive. You look at him confused. So why would changing the coins help that? He looks around a little nervously, asking you if you can keep this quiet. You tell him yes, he's always been able to rely on you. And he explains that when everyone brings in their coins, he is going to melt them down and add just a little bit more copper to the new ones. You have come into contact with another fundamental problem: debasement. For while coin clipping is a capital offense, most of the degradation of coin value came from debasement. Here, the old coins that had a certain percentage gold or silver would be melted down and mixed in with some cheaper metal, making there be less gold or silver in the coin, though continuing to call the coin the same thing. Like having a coin that is 1 pound of gold, called a gold pound, be melted down and 20% replaced with copper. You don't call it the 0.8 pound gold coin, you still call it the pound coin, and assert that it's the same value it always was. So why would a sovereign do this? Well, much like in your situation, Sometimes there's a fiscal emergency that needs to be addressed, and there isn't enough money to handle the situation. Sometimes when taxes come up too short, and there's a very serious need like a war, the coins will be melted down and debased, so that payments can be met, but with less of the precious metals. Yet sometimes it's more of a defensive matter. Let's say that you are the king of a kingdom, and the neighboring king has recently debased his coins around 20%. All of a sudden, his cheap, less valuable coins begin to flood into your markets. Well, in order to not drag down your economics, you, in turn, decide to debase your money the same amount, thereby bringing back some level of parity. And so you nod to the king, saying that you won't say anything, and that you are going to go along with his plan and act like it's a great thing. And so the people of all the kingdom bring their coins in to be melted down, and replaced with cheaper coins. This cheapening of their coins functionally acts as a hidden tax, and you have just witnessed seigniorage, the accrual of wealth to he who can debase the money, retaining the difference for himself. Fortunately, the war passes and you are able to get back to business. And so, going out on another business venture, you realize that you need some gold. And so you walk through London to make your way to the goldsmiths. You ask the goldsmiths if you can get some gold. Unfortunately, they don't have quite enough. And so, you wonder what you're going to do. There just isn't enough gold, and you can't get all the coins that you need for all the trades you want to do. If only there were some way that you could borrow money. If only there were some way to grow the supply of gold out of nothing. But after all, you think, that would be crazy.